Hello guys, I'm Tom, and today we're going to explore what the Leviathan is. In the vast and unsettling landscape of horror cinema, where the boundaries between the human and the monstrous blur, few entities have reached the near-mythological status of Leviathan. This enigmatic figure, born from the deepest, most unfathomable corners of Clive Barker's imagination, is not just another villain or grotesque monster. It is the very embodiment of infernal order, a cosmic manifestation of absolute control that transcends the limits of conventional fear. Its mere presence commands silence, reverence, and terror, as if the human mind instinctively knows it is in the presence of something far beyond comprehension. In this video, we'll dive into the conceptual and visual abyss that Leviathan represents. I'll tell you everything you need to know about this imposing figure, from its literary origins in the novella The Hellbound Heart to its most striking appearances in the films. We'll also explore its symbolism, its supernatural abilities, its cold and calculating psychology, and those few, almost non-existent, weaknesses that might destabilize its infernal reign. Within the Hellraiser universe, Leviathan is not a character that merely exists in the background. It is the beating, or rather unflinching, heart of the entire infernal structure known as the Labyrinth. It is the force that governs this parallel dimension we might call Hell, though in truth, it is something far more complex and orderly than any traditional depiction. In this place, where pain becomes a sacred language and flesh is shaped by incomprehensible laws, Leviathan sets the rules. It defines punishment. It decides who deserves to suffer and how. Even the Cenobites, those imposing, tormented figures that fuse pleasure and pain in an endless dance, are nothing more than instruments of its will. Not even Pinhead, the most iconic among them, acts on his own. He, like all the others, serves something vaster, older, and colder. Leviathan does not need to raise its voice or wield weapons. Its power lies in its ability to reshape reality according to its will. Its dominion is not enforced with explosive violence, but with the crushing logic of absolute order. The most disturbing thing about this entity is precisely its apparent lack of human emotion. There is no rage in its gaze, no joy in its punishment, no disdain in its judgment. Its form, geometric and perfect, seems inspired by an alien logic that knows neither love nor hate. It is not evil out of pleasure or vengeance. It is simply a principle, an idea taken to the extreme. Pure order, total control, an inhuman intelligence that finds beauty in the symmetry of suffering. This is why, for many experts and fans of the genre, Leviathan represents one of the most chilling and sophisticated antagonists ever conceived in horror fiction. Not because it destroys cities or devours souls with unleashed violence, but because it represents something far more terrifying. A universe without chaos, without freedom, without a soul. A universe where everything is regulated, even pain. Although its origin remains shrouded in mystery, the legends that have emerged over time, especially in comics and more philosophical interpretations of the myth, suggest that Leviathan existed long before life, as we know it, appeared on Earth. It was not born, it was not created, it simply is an eternal force that represents the absolute rejection of biological chaos. From its perspective, life is a mistake, an organic anomaly that disrupts the perfect symmetry of the universe. And when life began to proliferate, it reacted, not with anger, but with correction, like a mathematical equation attempting to resolve its own imperfection. It was then that it crossed the boundaries of its dimension and established itself in a realm that humans can access only through suffering, a plane called the Light, a space that, paradoxically, shines with an intensity so blinding it annihilates all living things. There, Leviathan created its labyrinth, not as a prison, but as a reflection of its perfect logic, a world without surprises, without emotion, without life. Yet even in that place where everything was meant to be under its control, life managed to seep through. Cracks appeared. Flowers bloomed where no color should exist. The imperfect began to multiply, slowly. And Leviathan understood that external destruction was not enough. That the only way to eradicate chaos once and for all was to introduce order into the very heart of the organic. Thus began its intervention in the human mind. Through symbols, dreams, impossible equations, and unintelligible whispers, Leviathan began leaving its mark on our species. It sowed dangerous ideas. It introduced mental structures that made humans colder, more calculating, more efficient. It taught them to dominate, to subjugate, to reshape the world according to a logic of power and control. And the further humanity strayed from nature, the closer it drew to Leviathan's infernal vision. Little by little, the real world began to resemble the Labyrinth. Cities filled with concrete, with symmetrical and functional structures. Soulless buildings rose. Compassionless machines multiplied. Pain became institutionalized. Control glorified. Leviathan didn't need to conquer the planet by force. It infected it with ideas. And like any architect of a religion, it chose disciples. Individuals who, through their cruelty or thirst for order, became bearers of its vision. Scientists without ethics, surgeons without empathy, leaders who saw humanity as a failed experiment. One of them was Dr. Philip Channard. In the second Hellraiser film, Leviathan makes its most direct and powerful appearance. There we discover that it is not merely behind the events, it designs them. It is Leviathan who allows Julia, a woman marked by death and ambition, to return from hell with a specific mission, to lure Channard into the Labyrinth. And once there, Leviathan not only transforms him physically, but reveals him spiritually. Through a black light that penetrates to the deepest recesses of the soul, Channard is confronted with his darkest desires, with his need to control and to mutilate. After a series of shocking revelations, Julia exposes a truth that changes everything. Leviathan never had redemptive intentions, nor promised any genuine reward. From the very beginning, she was just another piece on his shadowy chessboard, a useful, disposable pawn. Everything she did, every murder, every manipulation, served a greater and far more terrifying purpose: collecting human souls to expand his domain. Leviathan wasn't seeking redemption or balance. He wanted to tear open a permanent rift between dimensions and drag the Labyrinth, a hell both personal and mathematically designed, into our world. The ultimate goal was clear: to transform Earth into an extension of his realm and to reshape humanity into malleable flesh for his army of Cenobites. One of the most disturbing scenes in Hellbound, Hellraiser II reveals just how calculated Leviathan's every move has been. In a ritual as symbolic as it is grotesque, the god of pain takes the lament configuration, the enigmatic puzzle box that opens the gates of hell, and transforms it through a mechanism that fuses technology with organic matter. A dark chamber slowly spins as a viscous tentacle penetrates Dr. Channard's skull, reprogramming his mind and nullifying his free will. In that moment, both he and Julia become puppets serving a higher intelligence. As Leviathan's new apostle, Channard scatters several of these boxes throughout his psychiatric hospital, encouraging patients to solve them. Each fractured mind that falls into the trap becomes spiritual nourishment for the god of order. Yet, the irony and deeply human twist is that the same artifact, the box, hides within it the key to weakening its master. Kirsty Cotton, driven by a mixture of courage and desperation, manages to alter the structure of the cube from within the labyrinth itself, transforming it into a multifaceted figure, diamond-like, which temporarily nullifies Leviathan's power. It's an almost impossible feat, one that defies the logic of his world. And it's only achievable thanks to Tiffany, a young girl with a supernatural gift for solving puzzles. After witnessing absolute horror, hell turned into architecture, the body and mind mutilated by Channard, Tiffany breaks her silence and takes action. She completely reconfigures the box, and the result is devastating. Leviathan, wounded at his core, takes on a colossal form, a rotating cube, suspended in the sky above the labyrinth, shrouded in black light and impossible geometry. This act of resistance not only severely weakens him, but it triggers a rupture within his dominion. The trapped souls begin to escape. Perfect order starts to crumble. Channard is destroyed in a scene bordering on metaphysical nightmare, and Leviathan, though not killed, vanishes from the narrative. His figure disappears, but his shadow remains. It's then that Pinhead, the priest of pain and once loyal servant, becomes the new face of horror. But he no longer obeys blindly. The absence of the god leaves him alone with his own conscience, igniting a conflict that will shape the next chapters. The world keeps turning, but something has changed. The heart of the labyrinth no longer beats with the same force. Which brings us to the inevitable question: what exactly is Leviathan? What makes him so terrifying, so unique within the pantheon of cinematic horror? Leviathan is not simply a monster. He is an idea elevated to the level of deity, known as the god of flesh, of structured desire, of the hunger that never satisfies. He is the embodiment of order taken to its most inhuman extreme, where every human emotion is treated as a flaw to be corrected. There is no space for empathy, doubt, or forgiveness. Only judgment, only control. Unlike his grotesque Cenobite servants, beings sculpted by pain, Leviathan chooses a geometric form, a perfect rhombus floating at the center of the labyrinth, spinning hypnotically. From its core, it emits beams of black light capable of piercing body and mind, exposing the darkest memories of those who receive them. These rays don't simply punish. They dissect the psyche, expose guilt, and turn it into eternal condemnation. Leviathan does not roar, does not scream. He observes. He calculates. He is a cosmic consciousness that interprets existence as a mistake that must be corrected. Human chaos is his enemy. That is why he creates the Cenobites, silent enforcers of a worldview where pain is not only punishment but purification. The labyrinth he inhabits is not just a hell. It's a psychic dimension, a mind made into space. Each hallway represents a trauma, each room a guilt, every corner a truth the soul tries to hide. Leviathan doesn't just rule there. He inhabits it, breathes it. He is the architect of a pain that isn't screamed, but thought, a pain lived in silence. Among his most fearsome abilities is the power to create Cenobites with a single decision. He takes human bodies and turns them into art, living sculptures of suffering. He penetrates every pore, every thought, and implants a new identity where no sense of self remains. This transformation is not just physical, it is existential. It is the act of erasing the being to leave behind only function. Leviathan is immortal within his realm, omnipresent. He can intervene in the physical world whenever he chooses, and every time he does, he leaves a scar in reality. He controls the Cenobites like a faceless puppeteer. He can grant them power, degrade them, or eliminate them entirely. But even a god like this has a crack in his logic. If someone solves the lament configuration from within the labyrinth, the entire structure begins to collapse. Order breaks. The box stops functioning. The trapped souls find a way out. And Leviathan, though immense, is wounded, exposed. In conclusion, Leviathan is not just a villain. He is a philosophical declaration made flesh. He represents the inhuman desire for perfection through pain, the obsession with order that annihilates everything unpredictable or uncontrollable. He is the shadow behind every attempt to suppress emotion, to eliminate chaos, to erase what makes us human. Even if his presence fades in later installments, his legacy remains. Because as long as there are minds willing to sacrifice freedom for control, pain for perfection, Leviathan will never truly be dead. He is only waiting. And that brings us to the end of everything we currently know about the entity known as Leviathan within the Hellraiser universe. A figure who, far from being just another villain, confronts us with profound questions about order, control, and the total loss of humanity. Personally, I find it fascinating how this being, without ever raising its voice or showing emotion, asserts itself as one of the most haunting antagonists horror cinema has ever produced. Now I'd love to hear from you. Were you already familiar with Leviathan and his role within the Labyrinth? Do you think a being like this represents more than just a supernatural threat? Perhaps even a critique of our obsession with control? And if you had the chance to see the Labyrinth with your own eyes, would you dare cross its threshold? Let me know your answers in the comments. And if you enjoyed this analysis, share it with someone who also appreciates the dark and symbolic stories horror cinema has to offer. Thank you so much for staying until the end. It means the world to me. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any upcoming videos on the channel.